All right. This morning was a comedy of errors. Because I did not trust my instincts. And I gambled and lost. I didn't lose that big. I lost some time. And a little bit of money. But nothing was destroyed. What I did was I decided to use up some silicone that I had that was probably going on a couple of months old. Still fine, but needed to be used up. And when I looked in the bucket, immediately I thought it's not enough. And then when I poured it out into a mixing cup, I looked at it again and I thought, it's close, but it might not be enough. So long story short, I catalyzed it and poured it, and it wasn't enough. Just short of being enough. But enough where it was no good. And then I had a mold full of uncatalyzed silicone, and I had to wait. So I threw it in an oven, forced cured it, but so that was the result. So I cut it off, but I had a big air bubble on each side. It wasn't enough. I was probably about 100 grams short. So not only did I waste my morning, and I also wasted probably about $50 or $60 worth of silicone. So now we have to fix that. Well, my plan was to start pouring the last few of these this evening. But of course, that's really, I just lost some time, really. A little bit of silicone. It's one of those things when sometimes you know better, but you're telling yourself the whole time, no, don't do this because this is really dumb. No, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go for it. Nice evening rain shower here, bring the temp down. I always welcome that. That will be coming to an end pretty soon, though, and then it'll just be hot all the time. This time of year, it's warm all day and it evaporates, and then in the afternoon, it all drops. I never did find that clay extruder. Very handy item. I have to pick up another one. It's kind of like a pasta extruder. It looks like a big metal syringe, but you can squeeze out these nice tubes of clay, so you're not always rolling tubes. I'm not sure what I did with it. Sometimes I know because I keep my garbage can like right underneath the front of my desk, and I've found tools in it before that I push off the desk. So I'm sure over the years I've tossed a number of things away because of that. FedEx man should be here anytime. It's another shipment of resin. Oh, he's been getting later and later in the day. He used to come around lunchtime every day. And then I guess I got on the afternoon schedule. I think last time with the silicone order, he came about 6:45. In ZBrush, I'm sculpting on the computer. There's a tool called Clay Tubes, which is a fantastic tool. I get about 50-50 work on traditional sculpting and ZBrush and Maya. I'm very glad that it's not completely taken over. I still like to have a physical object in front of me. I know you can get there with a 3D printer, but the bottleneck on that is really just the speed of a 3D printer. When that gets faster, we're all going to be in trouble. There's something too perfect about those sculpts. Although a good ZBrush sculptor will break symmetry. That'll probably be the next big thing for people in their homes, is everyone's going to have a 3D printer before too long. If you need a spatula or a serving spoon, you'll just download one and print it. Let's see. Need my timer. Full. Yeah, it's quiet tonight. Well, I'm doing boring stuff too, so. Nobody likes the boring stuff. I like if I'm sculpting or doing something like that. This is a big part of the process. So just in case someone looking for a video on two-part molds or shell molds, figured I'd stream it anyway, so I'm going to be here doing it. Knock that clip off. Oh, nothing bad. I just wasted a bunch of time, that's all. I just did something dumb. Gambled. I had a little bit of another kind of silicone left over in a bucket, and I wanted to use it so that it wouldn't just sit and go bad. And when I opened it up and I looked in there, I thought, that's not enough. And then I still dumped it into a mixing container and I weighed it and I thought, that's not enough. But that didn't stop me from catalyzing it, pouring it in the mold, and then, of course, it wasn't enough. So I had to cure the mold out, cut all that silicone away, and toss it in the garbage. Hey, what's going on? about 40 pounds on this and leave it while it cures. Maybe a little more. Yes, it will stick because the moisture will permeate the cardboard and sog it up, and then it's very porous. What are you trying to make a mold of? Just a stepping stone? You're going to build a shape out of the stepping stone? Well, the thing, are you going to make one stepping stone or are you going to make multiples? I would build it out of plywood, to be honest, if you're going to, want to make more than one. And then you can have it so it unscrews and you can pull the sides off and pull the finished casting out. If you're going to do one, then it doesn't really matter because you'll just tear off all the cardboard. You could even spray like cooking spray on the inside of the cardboard to make it oily, and then at least more, your water won't permeate as much. Probably still will, depending on the size too. The concrete is heavy, so if your cardboard gets wet and soggy, the cardboard will just bend and distort. So I would do it out of plywood. If you want me to, I'll draw it up for you. You'll have to just give me some basic information like, the size and the shape. How thick. A pizza box, huh? Now, my next question would be, do you plan on stepping on it? Or is it purely decorative out in the grass? Because if you're going to step on it, the thickness of a pizza box, it's going to crack. Unless you put, rebar or some reinforcement mesh in it. Yeah, they're going to break. And especially, when the way you get winters up there, they probably won't even make it one season, to be honest. And that's a little frustrating to go through all that, to go out in the spring and they're all broken. Honestly, I would go buy stepping stones. They're only a few bucks a piece, like $3 or $4 a piece. If you don't want like some special design, custom design or something. all that time you'll spend, you'll have to buy concrete, and you'll probably end up buying Sacrate ready mix, which doesn't have like the greatest mix of aggregate in it. I mean, you could do it to try it, but I'd keep expectations pretty low. You know, if you want to go through the whole, there's some additives, some acrylic additives you can add to concrete. You're probably going to want to put, you know, some kind of a pizza box is only like 1.25 inches or 1.5 inches thick, isn't it? That's not a whole lot. No, there's just a better way to do it, not using a pizza box. You can do it, but I wouldn't use a pizza box. And in general, I wouldn't listen to too much on Pinterest. Especially from the arts and crafts crowd on there. Oh, I like Pinterest. I look at Pinterest all the time to see what people are making. And there's some good artists, but a lot of times it's just they're aggregating stuff off the internet that other people have made and they have no idea. A lot of the DIY stuff on there is pretty shabby. For instance, making pavers with a pizza box. Hey, I got this great idea. Yeah, what's your idea? Oh, that's great. You're going to love it. Even without your winters, I mean, I would think that walking on 1 inch thick or 1.25 inch thick cast concrete is going to break. Suppose if you get your whatever's underneath it, if you make that nice and sturdy, the problem is with the ground underneath, if it softens and it doesn't completely support that stone, then when you step on it, it's going to flex into the ground. I can show you how to make a little mold, and then you can just pour them directly onto the ground. Trowel them off on the top, let it set, pull your mold off, go down, put it on the ground on the next one. That way it'll pour the cement into whatever, you know, if you want to dig it out a little bit, you can make your, you know, about a 3-inch concrete pour. Oh, tell us about that. That sounds fun. Glow in the dark bubbles. Who wouldn't like that? It makes me think of the radioactive Mountain Dew of the 2010s. That was all fake. Believe it or not, I've actually made molds for those concrete animals before. It's a heck of a job. use a rubber shell and then a fiberglass outer shell that you bolt together and then fill it with concrete. So I've got a little bit, maybe like 50 grams. Yeah, so since there's more people in here now, I'll tell you the dumb thing that I did this morning. I poured that mold that's in the pressure pot, but I had this bucket of silicone from earlier in the year that had been sitting around for a while, and I thought I really want to use that up so it doesn't go to waste. And I opened the bucket up and I looked at it and I was absolutely sure. Oh, A+, that's how everyone was doing those glow-in-the-dark radioactive Mountain Dews. They were saying that you put hydrogen peroxide and something else, and it was all just a troll. And you really don't want that. You don't want that juice from a light stick all over you. A lot of stuff that emits light on its own is kind of sketchy. Not for any really good reason, but I've wanted to have a silicone pad on the bottom of this little jar. All this thing is it's a vacuum container for a food saver, but I use it all the time for smaller vacuuming. But it always slides. So, you try to hold down the top, and because of what it's made of, it slides. One day I expect that this thing will implode. It's going to crack and it's going to go boom. And everything inside of it's going to go everywhere. And then I'll remember back to the time I told you guys that one of these days this thing's going to explode. And I kept using it. Although it's made for vacuuming, I'm putting a lot more vacuum on it than I'm sure it's rated for. When vacuum chambers implode, they don't implode like the house on Poltergeist, where they just kind of disappear into a little dot. They explode, but it's technically an implosion. But stuff goes everywhere. This has already started to gel. That should level out a little bit. You know what? I need to go look outside. Down the back of the building, I've got this little awning over the door. It's, it's nice and convenient. And the FedEx guy always leaves my package like about 2 feet from putting it under the awning out of the rain. That extra 2 feet, you don't have time for that nonsense. Got packages to deliver. If he walked that 2 feet every day, he'd probably lose upwards of 3 minutes of his day. It adds up. Oh, tonight is passive aggressive hour, isn't it? So in my experiments with that other skin, I did a mix. And it's actually a really nice deal. I did 50-50 mix, and I think I need to do like a 60-40 or a 75-25. So I might do one more little kind of experiment. Mainly what I'm looking for is the pot life and then the cure time for demold. But it's really, really strong. Really strong. Which is exactly what I want. I don't want anyone to tear their coombs. But I'm going to start off with a darker base. So maybe I'll do that. I'll do a few samples of this, pour it out on a plate, and then mix with my colors or mess with my ratios a little bit. Start a little bit darker, and then I'll have to do less painting. Not too much, but just out of this pink. It's a little pinkish. Once you give it the wash, it gets more like my skin. But I'd like to start more at my skin and then go further up from there. For this old Coombs. Nana. Is it Karen tonight? Where are the Laughcast Studios, A+? Are they in Philly? that just kind of a place where you like rent it for an hour, do your show, not mess with anything, and take off? I'll be right back. I'm going to go make sure all my resin isn't sitting out in the rain. He's still not here yet. Ting. So after this, we're going to get back to doing sculpture streams and other streams, making other stuff. But I was going to do something different tonight, but I messed up this morning. So I ended up with, of course, it wasn't enough. I knew it wasn't going to be enough. I poured it, and it was short in the mold. But now and then I had a mold full of uncured silicone. So I waited for it to gel, and then I put it in an oven for a couple of hours to force cure it. Because getting wet silicone off of something is really gross. And then I pulled it out and cut off where my big air bubble was in the back. So that was what I did first thing this morning. Didn't have enough coffee. And I ended up having to do it again tonight. This time we got it though. It's a predictable result when you're trying to cut a corner. Just doesn't usually work out. In the long run, I just lost money because I wasted about $50 worth of silicone. Dirt. I'm just trying to tell myself it was spoiled anyways. So. And I don't worry about it so much. When I worked for a certain company, we had a project we did that had a big mold that was about it might have been about a 4-foot tall mold. Same type of thing. It was clayed up, and then it had a fiberglass shell, and it had a pore for a membrane inside for the detail. But whenever you do that, you have to really clay up. You have to clay up all your seams. So wherever you have a seam between anything, it doesn't matter. It can look like it's as tight, you can't even fit a hair in there. You got to clay it up because silicone will find the lowest point and it'll leak out everywhere. So these guys were working on this mold, and they poured their silicone at the end of the day. We're just going to pour this, and then we'll go home, and in the morning we come back, we can pop it open. They didn't clay everything up. So when they got in the morning, there was a big puddle of silicone on the cement floor. It looked like a fried egg. And they just, all their silicone had run out of the mold in the night. Probably about, I would say, a good $300 or $400 worth of silicone out on the floor. And when I say those guys, it was those guys. It wasn't me. I'm not trying to get out of it. It wasn't my project. I was glad for that. I've done some dumb ones, though. Oh, I had someone mess up a project of mine one time that was really, really bad. It was a big sculpture out of foam, and the budget was tight, and they would not let me spend the extra money on urethane foam. And urethane foam is solvent resistant. And the nice thing about that is you don't have to worry about what kind of paint, anything, any chemicals that you get around it. If you want to clean something off, you don't have to worry about it. Styrofoam, everything melts it, except for like epoxies, marine epoxies. Urethane's okay. But anything polyester, anything solvent-based lacquer, toluene, xylene, anything like that will melt it. So I've done this big sculpture. That was my part of the job. And then it went over to some other guys. They were supposed to coat it with fiberglass. Well, because it was styrofoam, they had to first we used this product called Foam Coat. We used it a lot. It was basically like an air drying water-based product that had fibers in it. And it was kind of like a spackle, but it was impermeable with these fibers. You could coat foam with it, just like what it's named, and then it would dry, and then it was solvent resistant. So you could do solvent treatments over the top of it. So I'd made this nice sculpture. It was all done. Everything was smooth. And they foam coated it, covered the whole thing nice, went back, sanded it nice and smooth, did everything they were supposed to. But they didn't get every little spot. And so there was like, I mean, it was probably just like a 16th or an eighth of an inch hole that went all the way through to the styrofoam that they didn't catch. And so they went over and put all this fiberglass matting and started covering it in resin. And all the resin started to leak down through that hole and eat the styrofoam from the inside. It completely melted out a cavity, a huge cavity. And even like fumes will melt white styrofoam. So, oh, it was just a mess. I went out there and they were panicking and it was like caving in. The whole inside was just melted and hollowed out. What they ended up having to do is I said, get heat guns quick. We got heat guns and torches and we started kicking off that resin as fast as we could to get it to harden. And there was all this nice smooth sculpt. It was all undulated and caving in. And I don't know how many, I think it was like 10 gallons of Bondo that they ended up using. This was a big sculpture too. But all this Bondo that they ended up having to put over to smooth everything back, it was just a mess. Those things do happen, though. First thing tomorrow morning, I'll be casting with that mold. And then probably do a couple of Kumiyas on the live stream. And then I'm going to switch over to something else and just do the rest of them off stream because no one's going to want to watch half a dozen Kumiyas get made. And then we have the Skeksis and maybe another project. Yeah, I think it's weird tonight. Last couple of nights, it's been like the chat's not keeping up to the stream. It wasn't a great story. It was a tale of failure. Tell you what, I can blow this place out quick. No problems making a mess. I gotta order some wax too. Put that order in. Because one of the sculpts I'm gonna do is gonna be in wax. I gotta mix up. Order some custom crayons. Well, not custom, but specific colors. You can actually go and buy like a big box of one color, or just kind of nifty. Hopefully I didn't get mold release all over this little tiny Darth Vader. I tried to keep it out of the way. I need to get on eBay and see if I can find some more of these and just throw them on a shelf somewhere. They're really, really cool. I don't know why we don't get stuff like this over here. There's, we get products from Bandai over here, like the Gundams and some of the larger model kits, but some of the stuff they hold out on us, I'm sure it's a licensing issue with Disney consumer products, but the stuff is so cool. I wish they wouldn't hold it out. They're dirt cheap little things. They're like, $10 for like 2 of these little models in a box, but then you're paying all the shipping from Japan. have a goofy little side project. This was someone else's idea, but they wanted to do a Kumia bookmark to commemorate the release of the book. So I was just kind of sketching around. You have a bookmark that clips, and then it like has blood dripping over your page. So we'll see. That's a simple one to do. Just a very basic. So I have a very frightening Danny Woodward, the crazed Danny Woodmans, and then the skull version of Danny Woodward, the controversial listener. So I've got this, I've got a laminator, and I've got like a package of sleeves. So really, I could just print some of these out on cardstock and laminate them, and then I'd have to cut that part out by hand. But put that on a white background so it wouldn't really, it would look white on white. But I have to sit down and draw a good one. Probably just do it in Photoshop. But that wasn't my idea. That was Greg's idea. Need to make a shopping list because there's a few things I've forgotten the last couple of times I've gone out. Need a new air regulator for this end of the line. Not sure what happened to that other one. It works, but it doesn't keep a consistent flow. It like needs to backfill the line, and then the pressure builds back up, and then it comes back up to the pressure set on the gauge. So there's probably just something wrong with the valve inside of it. It's either sticking or it's a weak valve. Oh, we got to come up. We have to get the Skexis is good. We got to come up with a couple of projects that will grow the channel a little bit. We get too fool-centric on these comedians. And it's not interesting to most people. Poor people come here and have no idea what we're talking about half the time. Yeah, we could do that. We could make, I could show you how to make a form to do that. And I could just do it like half scale. so that it would be manageable in here. Yeah, it's really easy. You just need a wood form that you can put down, fill it, wait till it sets, and then take it apart. And then put it back together where you want to go again. So it would, you could make more than one. I mean, that's what I would do. I would buy enough wood to like make all of them at one time, pour all of them at one time. But if I knew where I wanted them to go, I would pour them into the ground and not pour them above ground and then set them down. If I were to do that, I would just buy pavers because they'll be cheaper in the long run. If they crack, you just get another one, pull it out of the ground, replace it. A plus, do you have tools to cut wood? Like a chop saw to like cut a 2x4 or anything like that? Yeah, I'll go over it with you so we can get it figured out. You can use cheap wood from like a Lowe's or a Home Depot to make the forms. All right, well, it's 8 o'clock. All right, I'm going to end this one early tonight. I know it was a boring one, but I had to make up that foolery I got myself into this morning. After this one, we'll be making stuff again. Well, everybody have a great night. If you are going to watch Passive Aggressive Hour on Facebook Live, I'll see you over that way. Have a great night. Thanks for hanging out.